The chains felt heavier than they should. Liam Carter pressed his face against the cold viewport, watching the green planet grow larger with each passing second. Around him, 7 other prisoners sat in silence. Nobody spoke anymore. They had run out of prayers 3 days ago. Ravaka filled the entire window now. Thick clouds swirled across a surface covered in endless jungle. The guard called it a Category 5 death world, the highest rating. The kind of place where survey teams died in hours and entire expeditions vanished without a trace. Perfect for dumping people the Galactic Council wanted to forget. Carter, Liam. Crime of sedition against the colonial authority. The automated voice echoed through the transport bay. Sentence: permanent exile to Ravaka. May your death serve as warning to others who would betray humanity's expansion. Liam closed his eyes. Sedition. The word tasted like poison. All he had done was tell the truth. The colonial governors were poisoning the water supply on Outpost 17 to force the native population into work contracts. He had proof. He had witnesses. He had thought someone would care. Instead, they labeled him a traitor and shipped him here. The transport shuddered as it entered the atmosphere. Through the viewport, Liam saw the jungle in terrible detail now. Trees as tall as skyscrapers. Vines thick as transit tubes. Rivers that steamed and bubbled. Somewhere down there, things were hunting. Things that had evolved in gravity 50% higher than Earth standard. Things that would see a human as easy prey. A guard unlocked his chains and shoved a survival pack into his arms. Neural translator, water filter, protein bars for 3 days. Emergency beacon that nobody will answer. Standard issue. Generous. Liam muttered. The guard smiled without humor. We're not monsters. You get a chance. Most exiles last a week if they're smart. The floor beneath them split open. Wind roared into the compartment, hot and wet and smelling of rot and growing things. One by one, the prisoners were loaded into drop pods barely larger than coffins. Liam climbed into his, and the hatch sealed with a hiss. Drop commencing in 3, 2, 1. The pod fell. Gravity grabbed him like a fist. The pod screamed through the atmosphere, shaking so hard his teeth rattled. Through the tiny window, he saw other pods falling around him, spreading out across miles of jungle. Then the canopy rushed up and the world became a blur of green. Impact. The pod smashed through branches, spinning wildly. Liam's head cracked against the padding. Something tore away outside. The pod tumbled, falling, and then hit water with a splash that drove the air from his lungs. For a moment, everything was dark and quiet. Then the emergency release kicked in and the hatch popped open. Liam dragged himself out into chest-deep swamp water that felt too warm and smelled of sulfur. He stood on shaking legs, survival pack clutched to his chest. The pod was already sinking behind him. All around, massive trees rose from the swamp on root systems like cathedral pillars. The canopy far above blocked most of the light, leaving everything in green twilight. And the sounds. God, the sounds. Clicks and hisses and screams. Splashes. The heavy thud of something big moving through water. Liam waded toward the nearest tree, every step an effort in the thick mud. His muscles already ached from the gravity. Every breath felt like he was inhaling through wet cloth. He reached the tree and found a space between 2 enormous roots, just big enough to squeeze into. The water around where his pod had landed began to churn. Something rose from beneath the surface. Scales like black glass. Eyes that glowed faintly yellow. A mouth that could swallow him whole. The creature sniffed the air, turned its massive head toward Liam's hiding spot, and then slowly submerged again. He did not move for an hour. When he finally risked climbing higher into the root system, the twin suns were setting. The jungle transformed. Bioluminescent fungi began to glow on the tree trunks. Insects the size of his hand drifted past, trailing light. And in the distance, something screamed, high and piercing. A human scream, cut suddenly short. Liam counted. That was the 4th scream since landing. The other prisoners were dying. Fast out, he opened the survival pack with trembling hands. The water filter looked cheap. The protein bars were standard ration blocks. The emergency beacon sat at the bottom, a small red light blinking steadily. He stared at it for a long moment, then turned it off. Nobody was coming. The beacon just told predators where to find him. The neural translator was a small chip that adhered to his temple. It would pick up sounds and try to translate them into patterns he could understand. Mostly useless on a world with no documented intelligent species, but regulations required it. Night came completely. The jungle grew louder. Things moved in the darkness below. Big things. Liam wedged himself deeper into the roots and tried to make himself small. His engineering training ran through his head. Shelter, water, food, fire. The basics of survival. But this was not Earth. The gravity pressed down on him like a weight. The air felt wrong in his lungs. Every shadow held teeth. Something landed on the branch above him. Liam froze. Through the gaps in the roots, he saw it. 6 feet tall, covered in feathers that looked more like scales. A long snout filled with teeth. Legs built for running. It moved like a raptor from old Earth fossils, but faster, smoother, deadlier. Its head turned, scanning the darkness with eyes that reflected the bioluminescent light. The neural translator buzzed against his temple. The sounds a creature made formed into something almost like words in his mind. Territory marks, hunting calls, a language of clicks and whistles that meant things to others of its kind. Then the creature stopped. Its head tilted. It was looking right at him. Liam's heart hammered. His hand found a broken branch. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. The creature took a step closer. Another. Its nostrils flared. Tasting his scent, a roar shook the jungle. Deeper than thunder. The raptor creature's feathers flattened against its body. It made a sound like a hiss and bounded away, vanishing into the canopy in seconds. Liam let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Whatever had made that roar, the raptor feared it, which meant something worse was out there. Something at the top of the food chain. He pulled himself higher into the roots and found a spot where 3 thick branches formed a natural shelter. Using the straps from the survival pack, he secured himself so he would not fall if he slept. Not that sleep seemed possible, but exhaustion had its own gravity, and eventually his eyes closed. His last thought before darkness took him was simple. He had survived day 1. 6 other screams had stopped. Maybe he would get lucky. Maybe he would last a full week. 3 weeks on Ravaka had taught Liam things no training manual could cover. The jungle operated on rules. Brutal, unforgiving rules, but rules nonetheless. Everything had a territory. Everything had a schedule. And if you were smart enough to learn the patterns, you could slip between the gaps. He moved through the undergrowth now, with careful steps, eyes scanning the canopy above. The raptor creatures hunted in the early morning, so midday was safer for travel. The massive armored things he called thornbacks owned the river valleys, but they were slow and easy to avoid if you heard them coming. The real danger came from above. The canopy stalkers were ambush hunters that could stay motionless for hours, then strike faster than thought. Liam's shelter sat in a dead zone between 3 major territories. The raptors did not come here because the thornbacks used this area as a migration route. The thornbacks avoided it during the day because the stalkers nested overhead. Through pure luck and careful observation, he had found one of the few safe spots in this green hell. His body had changed. The constant gravity had stripped away fat and built muscle. His reflexes were sharper, his hearing better. He could read the jungle now, understand its moods. When the insects went quiet, predators were near. When the bioluminescent fungi dimmed, something big was passing through. The jungle spoke to those who listened. Water had been the first problem he solved. The streams were toxic, but he discovered certain fungi grew only near underground springs. He dug down where they clustered and found clean water 3 feet below the surface. The filter in his survival pack had died after 2 days, but he learned to boil water using heated rocks and a depression in a large leaf. Food was harder. The protein bars ran out after 5 days. He learned through painful trial that most jungle fruits were poisonous to humans. But there were pale mushrooms that grew on the north side of trees. They tasted like dirt and gave him cramps, but they kept him alive. Sometimes he found eggs in stalker nests if he timed his raids right. Once, he salvaged meat from a kill the raptors abandoned He was making his way toward his water source when movement caught his eye. One of the raptors, smaller than most, was thrashing in a tangle of vines near the base of a massive tree. The vines were moving, carnivorous plants that sensed vibration and constricted around anything that touched them. The raptor's calls were sharp with panic. The neural translator gave him fragments. Trapped. Pain. Pack far. No help. Liam should have kept walking. Helping a predator was insane. But something in those calls reminded him of the screams from that first night. Fear was universal. And the raptor was young, barely adult-sized. He grabbed a dead branch and approached slowly. The vines sensed him and began reaching out. Liam pulled out the small fire starter from his pack, one of the few tools still working. He lit the dry end of the branch and thrust it at the vines. The plants recoiled from fire. The ones wrapped around the raptor loosened. Liam worked quickly, burning through the thickest vines, careful not to hit the creature itself. The raptor watched him with intelligent eyes. Its struggling stopped. It seemed to understand he was helping. The last vine fell away. The raptor scrambled free, stumbled, caught its balance. For a long moment, it stared at Liam. He held very still, ready to run or fight if needed. The creature tilted its head, made a soft clicking sound, then bounded away into the undergrowth. Liam released his breath and hurried back to his shelter. Stupid. That was stupid. Predators were not pets. They did not form bonds. Getting close to one was asking to be dinner. But the next morning, he found something outside his shelter. A small creature, freshly killed, still warm. It was the same species he had seen raptors hunt. And nearby, in the soft mud, were tracks. Raptor tracks. The young one had brought him food. Over the following days, Liam began to see the raptor watching him from a distance. He started thinking of it as Swift because of how fast it moved through the trees. Swift never approached closely, but she was there. Following, learning, Liam noticed something else. The jungle's predators marked their territories. The raptors left claw marks on specific trees. The thornbacks rubbed certain rocks until they shone. Even the stalkers left waste in precise locations. Territory was sacred here. Crossing boundaries without showing proper respect led to fights, but the fights had rules too. Winners claimed space. Losers retreated. There was no need for total dominance, just clear hierarchy. He began marking his own small territory. At first, nothing changed. But when a smaller predator, something like a lizard the size of a dog, wandered into his space, Liam chased it off with fire and shouting. The creature fled. 2 days later, a different small predator approached the boundary of his marked zone, seemed to recognize the territory markers, and turned away without entering. They were acknowledging him, not as prey, as something that held space. That on the 23rd day, the massive predator returned. Liam had seen it only once before, on his first night. It was enormous, 12 feet tall, with 6 limbs, and covered in patterns that glowed with bioluminescent light. The patterns shifted and changed colors. The neural translator buzzed constantly, but could not quite make sense of what the lights meant. The creature stood at the edge of Liam's territory. Its patterns flickered through blues and greens. Liam's engineering mind recognized it instinctively. A test. A challenge. The thing was asking if Liam truly claimed this space. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But running meant showing weakness. Weakness meant prey. So Liam stood up, made himself as large as possible, and shouted. Raw sound with no meaning. Just noise. Claiming. Defending. He grabbed a burning branch from his fire and waved it. The massive predator's patterns shifted to yellow. Its head tilted. For several heartbeats, neither moved. Then the creature's patterns changed to a soft purple, and it made a sound like a deep drum. It turned and walked away, its heavy steps shaking the ground. Liam collapsed against a tree, shaking. The neural translator had caught something from that final sound. Not words exactly, but meaning. Recognition. The creature had acknowledged his claim. That night, Swift approached closer than ever before. She left another kill, larger this time, enough meat for days. Her clicking calls formed patterns the translator rendered as simple concepts. Pack. Safe. Learn. Liam looked at the raptor, really looked. She was not just following instinct. She was thinking, choosing. The jungle was not mindless violence. It was a complex society with its own rules and respect. He had been thinking about this place wrong from the beginning. This was not a death world. It was a harsh world. There was a difference. Death worlds killed everything. Harsh worlds killed the stupid and weak, but allowed the smart and strong to thrive. Liam was still human, still soft compared to creatures born here. But humans had one advantage that evolution sometimes overlooked. Humans adapta. They learned. They changed their thinking when the old ways did not work. The jungle did not want him dead. It wanted him to prove he belonged. And slowly, carefully, Liam was doing exactly that. The rains came on the 40th day. Not gentle earth rain, but sheets of water that fell like hammer blows and turned the jungle floor into a rushing river. Liam had prepared. His shelter now had a proper roof woven from massive leaves he had learned to harvest without triggering their defensive toxins. Channels he carved in the rock directed water away from his sleeping area and into collection pools that Swift's pack appeared during the storm. 5 raptors total, all watching from the trees as Liam worked. The neural translator picked up their clicks and whistles. Confusion. Interest. Questions passed between them in a language of sound and gesture. Point one raptor, larger and scarred across the snout, moved closer. The leader. It studied Liam's water collection system, the way he had created something the jungle did not naturally provide. Then it made a series of sharp clicks. Swift responded, her own clicks rapid and insistent. The translator caught fragments. Saved. Smart. Different thinking. The pack leader approached the edge of Liam's territory and dropped a large armored creature at the boundary. Fresh kill. An offering, or perhaps a test. Liam recognized the gesture now. He walked to the boundary, examined the kill, and dragged it fully into his space. Acceptance. The pack leader's head bobbed once. A nod that transcended species. Then the raptors vanished into the storm. After the rain stopped, Liam skinned the armored creature and used its shell plates to improve his shelter. The raptors returned the next day to watch. They saw how he used tools, how he applied leverage and planning to solve problems. One of the younger raptors tried to mimic him, using a rock to crack open a thick shell it had caught. It worked. The young raptor made an excited chirping sound and showed the others. Within days, Liam saw several raptors using rocks as tools. Swift's pack was learning from him, but Liam was learning too. He watched how Swift communicated with her pack, how they coordinated hunts using specific calls, how they shared information about threats and opportunities. The neural translator was getting better at interpretation, or maybe Liam's brain was adapting to think in their patterns. The jungle's hierarchy became clearer. The raptors were mid-level predators, smart and fast, but not apex. The thornbacks were tanks, nearly unstoppable but slow. The stalkers were specialists, perfect for ambush but weak in open confrontation. And then there were the massive, 6-limbed creatures Liam had started calling renders. They were the true rulers here. He saw more of them now. 3 different individuals patrolled overlapping territories that covered miles. The one that had tested Liam was the largest, its hide marked with scars from countless battles. Liam thought of it as Old Scar. The render had not challenged him again, but it passed through his territory regularly, its bioluminescent patterns always shifting through that same purple shade when it saw him. Acknowledgement. Not threat point. 2 months in, Liam's settlement had grown. He built a better fire pit using rocks that retained heat, created storage for dried meat, and preserved fungi. Even managed to fashion a crude hammer from stone and vine. His engineering knowledge combined with jungle materials to create things the predators had never seen. Then the thornback came to it was old and scarred, one horn broken, covered in the white fungi that grew on things near death. But it was still massive, still powerful, and it wanted Liam's water source. The creature crashed through the undergrowth, ignoring all boundary markers, claiming space through raw presence. Liam grabbed a burning branch and shouted. The thornback did not even slow down. It lowered its head and charged. He dove aside at the last second. The thornback's bulk smashed through his fire pit, scattering stones and embers. Liam scrambled up a rock face, But the creature followed, its 6 legs finding purchase easily despite its size. Fighting it directly was suicide. The thing weighed as much as a truck. But Liam's mind raced through possibilities. Leverage, gravity, terrain. He led the Thornback toward a narrow ravine where 2 massive trees had fallen against each other. The gap between them was just wide enough for the creature to enter, but the angle was wrong. The Thornback charged in, tried to reach Liam on the other side, and got stuck, its broad shoulders wedged between the fallen trees. The harder it pushed, the tighter it became trapped. Liam grabbed burning branches and threw them at the creature's feet. Not enough to truly harm it through the armor, but enough to cause pain and panic. The Thornback thrashed. The trees groaned but held. Liam kept up the pressure, using smoke and fire to drive the creature into exhaustion. It took hours. His arms ached. His lungs burned from the smoke. But finally, the Thornback stopped struggling. It stood there, chest heaving, and made a low rumbling sound. Defeat. Liam stopped throwing fire. He stepped back. The message was clear. He could continue the attack or show mercy. He chose mercy. Moved aside, gave the Thornback space to back out of the trap. The creature reversed slowly, carefully, until it was free. For a long moment, it stared at Liam with small eyes that showed more intelligence than he expected. Then it turned and walked away, its steps slow and deliberate, not fleeing, retreating with dignity. Swift and her pack had watched the entire encounter from the canopy. Now they descended, their clicks full of something the translator rendered as approval. The young raptor that used tools approached and touched Liam's hand with its snout. A gesture of respect. That night, Old Scar appeared at the boundary of Liam's expanded territory. The massive render's patterns flowed through colors Liam had not seen before. The neural translator struggled with the complexity, but caught core meaning. Strong, clever, worthy. The render left something at the boundary. A massive kill, enough meat to feed Liam for a week. But more than food, it was acknowledgement of status. Old Scar was recognizing Liam's victory over the Thornback. Liam approached the boundary carefully. He had been studying the render's light patterns for weeks now, trying to decode the language. He held up his hands, then lowered them slowly. An attempt at the submissive pattern he had seen younger renders use with Old Scar. The massive creature's patterns shifted to a warm orange. Its version of amusement, perhaps, seeing this tiny human try to speak in lights. But then Old Scar did something unexpected. It mimicked Liam's gesture, raising and lowering its front limbs. Communication. Two-way communication. Over the next week, Liam began to crack the pattern language. It was not words exactly, more like emotional concepts combined with intent. Blue meant calm. Red meant threat. Purple was acknowledgement between equals. Yellow was curiosity. Green indicated territory claims. That he started using colored mud and crushed bioluminescent fungi to mark his territory boundaries with patterns instead of just scratch marks. The first time Old Scar saw this, the render's entire body lit up in cascading colors. Surprise, understanding, respect. Other predators began visiting the boundaries of Liam's territory, not to challenge, but to observe. Word spread in whatever way information traveled through the jungle. A human had learned to speak, had learned to fight smart instead of hard, had earned space not through being the biggest or strongest, but through being clever and showing respect for the rules. The Swift Pack started spending more time near Liam's settlement. They brought him information, using their calls to warn of approaching Thornbacks or stalker movements. In return, Liam showed them more tool use. How to dig for water, how to use leverage to move heavy stones, how to read weather patterns in the sky. The jungle was becoming home, not because it had grown gentler, but because Liam had grown harder. He understood now what the Galactic Council had never grasped about death worlds. They were not random chaos. They were perfectly ordered systems where only the very best survived. And survival was not about physical strength alone. It was about adaptation, understanding, respect. The same qualities that had made humans spread across the stars were the qualities that let Liam thrive here. Not domination, but integration. Not conquest, but conversation. 3 months in, Liam no longer counted days until rescue. There would be no rescue. But sitting by his fire with Swift's pack resting nearby and Old Scar's bioluminescent patterns visible through the trees, Liam realized he did not want rescue anymore. He had found something the civilized galaxy had lost. A place where his worth was measured by his choices, not his papers. Where respect was earned through action, not granted through position. The jungle had tried to kill him. Instead, it had made him stronger. The ship appeared on the 107th day. Liam was checking his snare traps when the roar of engines split the jungle canopy. He looked up to see a Galactic Council survey vessel, smaller than the prison transport, but heavily armed. It circled twice before landing in a clearing 2 miles from his territory. Swift appeared beside him, her body tense. The other raptors emerged from the undergrowth, all focused on the sky where the ship had vanished beyond the trees. Their clicks were sharp with concern. New. Threat. Unknown. Liam's heart sank. He knew what survey ships meant. Resource extraction. The council had decided Ravaka was worth exploiting after all. And exploitation meant mercenaries and workers who would tear through the jungle without understanding its rules. He marked his shelter with the stay pattern he had developed with Swift's pack, then moved toward the landing site. Old Scar intercepted him halfway there, the massive renders patterns flickering between yellow and red. Curiosity and warning. Liam used his crude color markers to respond. Danger. Others. Like me, but different. Old Scar's patterns shifted to deep blue. The color meant waiting and watching. The render would follow at a distance. When Liam reached the clearing, he found 6 figures in combat armor unloading equipment. Mercenaries. Their armor bore the marks of a dozen different species, all hired guns working for whoever paid best. They moved with casual arrogance, weapons ready but not raised. To them, this was just another job on just another death world. Liam stayed hidden in the trees, watching. His neural translator picked up their communications easily. They were speaking Common Galactic Standard, a language he understood. Command says there was an Exile drop here 4 months back. Scan for human biosignatures. Probably just a corpse to tag and catalog, but regulations say we verify. What a waste of time. Nothing survives this place for 4 months. The sooner we confirm it, the sooner we can start resource surveys. Did you see the mineral scans? This rock is loaded with heavy metals. They spread out, scanners active. One spotted something and called the others over. Liam recognized the location. One of the other Exile drop zones. They were examining remains. Got one. Deceased. Cause of death looks like massive trauma. Some predator got him. Mark it and move on. 7 more to find. They were efficient and cold. Each dead Exile was just a checkbox on their list. When they found evidence of the prisoner who had screamed that first night, they laughed about it. Made jokes about how long the poor bastard had lasted. Liam's jaw clenched. These people saw Ravaka as nothing but a resource to strip. The predators were just obstacles to remove. The jungle was just terrain to clear. Point 1 mercenary wandered too close to a stalker nest. The predator dropped from above, moving with lethal speed. But the mercenary's armor alerted him. He spun and fired, the plasma bolt burning through the stalker before it could strike. The creature fell dead. The other mercenaries gathered around the corpse. Look at the size of this thing. Command will want samples. Cut off the head. Xenobiology will pay bonus for intact specimens. They were butchering it when Swift's pack appeared. 6 raptors arranged in challenge formation, their clicks demanding the intruders leave their territory. It was a clear display. Leave or fight. The mercenaries raised their weapons. More of them. Light them up. The plasma fire was devastating. Swift's brother fell first, his chest burned open. 2 more raptors died in seconds. Swift herself took a glancing hit that seared her shoulder. The surviving raptors fled into the jungle, their calls full of pain and shock. The mercenaries celebrated. Did you see that? Took down 3 in under 5 seconds. Death world predators. Not so tough against proper firepower. Liam felt something break inside him. These creatures were not monsters. They were not mindless animals. Swift had saved his life. Her pack had taught him, protected him, treated him as one of their own. And these mercenaries had gunned them down like targets in a shooting gallery, but he could reveal himself, walk out, and identify as the surviving exile. They would take him back to civilization, back to charges and trials and prison cells, back to a galaxy that had thrown him away, where he could choose differently. Swift found him an hour later, limping and bleeding. Her clicks were weak, full of grief. Brother, dead, pack, broken. Liam used the jungle medicine he had learned. Crushed fungi that fought infection, leaves that stopped bleeding. He worked carefully, and Swift led him. Trust built over months held even through her pain. While he worked, other predators gathered. Thornbacks at the clearing edge, stalkers in the canopy, an old scar, the massive render standing like a monument, its patterns flickering red and black. Threat, death, the jungle wanted blood. The mercenaries had broken every rule, killed without cause, showed no respect, took trophies, but the predators did not cooperate. It was not their nature. Each species fought alone, held their own territories, followed their own paths. They were fierce individuals, not an army. Unless someone showed them a different way. Liam spent the next 2 days preparing. He used colored markers to create patterns in clearings where the predators gathered. He drew simple pictures in the dirt showing mercenary positions and movement patterns. He demonstrated coordination using rocks and sticks, showing how different attacks from different directions could overwhelm superior firepower. The predators watched. Old Scar understood first, its vast intelligence grasping the concept of combined tactics. The render's patterns shifted and other renders appeared. 3 more of the massive creatures, drawn by Old Scar's summoning, Swift's remaining pack, studied the battle plans. The Thornbacks observed from the forest edge, their small eyes tracking the diagrams. Even the stalkers descended from their high nest to see what this human was proposing. Liam showed them the mercenaries' patterns. They always traveled in groups of 2. They relied on their armor's sensors. They were arrogant and predictable, and they had no idea the jungle could think that he used the pattern language to communicate with Old Scar. Together, hunt, victory. Old Scar's patterns ran through every color in rapid sequence. The render was considering something that went against millions of years of evolution. Cooperation between species, shared purpose, pack tactics on a scale the jungle had never seen. Then the massive creature's patterns settled on purple. Acknowledgement between equals. Agreement. Old Scar turned to the other predators and its patterns blazed. The message was clear. This human leads. This human plans. We follow. It should not have worked. Species that had hunted each other for eons should not have been able to cooperate. But Liam had spent months earning their respect, showing them that different thinking led to survival, proving that the human way of problem solving had value, and they had all seen their own kind killed by the mercenaries. The jungle had rules. The mercenaries had broken them all. Over the next day, Liam organized the impossible. Shrikes were positioned as scouts and harassment forces. Thornbacks became mobile barriers to break enemy formations. Stalkers took high positions for ambush strikes. And the renders formed the killing circle, their massive strength ready to finish what the others began. Liam explained the mercenaries' technology, how the sensors worked, how to overload the shields with sustained attacks, how their plasma weapons overheated and needed cooling time. The predators learned fast. They had been surviving in this harsh environment their entire lives. Adding human tactics to jungle instincts created something terrifying. On the 3rd day, Liam led them to the mercenary camp. He carried weapons now, a spear made from thornback bone, a club weighted with heavy stone, fire materials that would burn even in rain. The mercenaries had set up a perimeter of sensors and auto turrets, sophisticated technology that should have made them untouchable, but they had never faced a death world that fought back with intelligence and coordination. Liam gave the signal. The jungle came alive. The shrikes attacked first. Swift and her remaining pack burst from the undergrowth in perfect coordination, their calls synchronized. The mercenaries spun toward the threat, weapons raised, exactly as Liam predicted. The auto turrets opened fire. Plasma bolts tore through the jungle. But the raptors were already gone, vanishing into pre-planned escape routes. The turrets tracked empty air, wasting ammunition on shadows. Contact north side. Multiple hostiles. I count 6 of those raptor things. Spread out and nail them. The mercenaries moved into formation, 3 pairs breaking in different directions. Exactly what Liam had hoped. Divided forces were vulnerable forces. The Thornbacks hit from the west. 4 of the massive armored creatures charged in a line, their combined weight shaking the ground. The mercenaries' sensors screamed warnings, but there was no time to reposition. The Thornbacks crashed through the auto turret line, trampling 2 of the guns under their bulk. We got heavies incoming. Focus fire. Plasma bolts hammered the Thornbacks. Their armor held for the first few shots, then began to crack. One Thornback fell, its leg shattered. But the others kept coming, breaking the mercenaries' defensive perimeter wide open. That was when the stalkers dropped from above. Point 3 of the ambush predators had been waiting in the canopy, patient and perfectly still. Now they fell on the mercenaries like living shadows. One landed directly on a mercenary's back, its weight bearing him to the ground. Claws found gaps in the armor joints. The man screamed once before going silent. They are coordinating. These things are working together. That is impossible. Death World predators do not cooperate. But they were. The Shrikes returned, attacking from new angles, forcing the mercenaries to split their attention. The Thornbacks formed a living wall, cutting off retreat routes. The Stalkers struck whenever a mercenary became isolated. Liam watched from elevated ground, using colored light signals to direct the assault. He had learned the patterns well enough now. Blue flash meant Shrikes pull back. Red meant Thornbacks advance. Yellow sent the Stalkers to new positions. The jungle fought like a single organism, each part supporting the others. Point 1 mercenary broke from the group and ran for the ship. Smart. Get to the communications array and call for backup. Liam had expected this. He gave the purple signal. Old Scar emerged from the jungle directly in the fleeing mercenary's path. The man skidded to a halt, staring up at 12 feet of apex predator. Old Scar's patterns blazed pure red. The mercenary raised his weapon, but the render moved faster than something that large should be able to move. One massive limb swept out, sending the mercenary flying 20 feet into a tree trunk. He did not get up. The remaining 5 mercenaries formed a tight circle, backs together, weapons facing outward. Defensive position. Good training. But they were thinking in terms of normal predator behavior. The Thornbacks rushed them from one side, drawing fire. The mercenaries poured plasma into the armored creatures, dropping 2 more. Their weapons began to overheat, cycling systems struggling to cool the barrels. In that 3-second cooldown window, the Shrikes attacked from behind. Point 2 more mercenaries fell. Only 3 remained now, and their confidence was breaking. Fall back to the ship. Move, move, move. They ran. The jungle pursued. But Liam signaled the predators to slow down. Let the mercenaries reach the ship. He needed them alive for the next part. The 3 survivors made it to the landing ramp and scrambled inside. The ship's shields activated, a shimmering barrier that would stop any physical attack. Point 1 of them. The leader, based on his armor markings, activated the communications panel. This is Survey Team 7 requesting immediate extraction. We are under attack by organized indigenous forces. Repeat. The Death World predators are displaying coordinated hunting behavior and tool use. We need military backup now. Silence from the communicator. The man tried again. Still nothing. Liam stepped out of the jungle, holding a bundle of metal components. The ship's external communication array. He had sabotaged it 2 hours before the attack, using climbing skills learned from watching the Stalkers. The mercenaries saw him through the ship's viewports. Saw a human, ragged and scarred, covered in jungle mud and carrying weapons made from bone and stone. Saw him standing among dozens of predators that watched him for direction. The leader activated the external speakers. You're the Exile. Carter, right? Liam Carter. Liam nodded. What have you done? These creatures, they are following your orders. They are not following orders, Liam said. His voice was rough from months of disuse with humans. They are defending their home. You came here, killed without respect, took trophies. You broke every rule. Rules? These are animals. No, you just never bothered to learn their language. Another mercenary pushed forward. Roth, according to his name tag, older than the others, with the scars of a veteran. The council will send more ships. Armed ones. They will burn this jungle to bedrock if you killed council employees. Then they will burn empty rock. Your survey scans showed minerals. But scans also show this planet has unique electromagnetic properties. Properties that make long-range communications impossible without relay satellites. And we destroyed your relay 30 minutes before the attack started. The stalkers are very good climbers, even into orbit. Roth's eyes widened. He understood. The council did not know the survey team was in trouble. Would not know for weeks, maybe months. By then, the jungle would have reclaimed everything. You planned this. All of it. I learned from the best teachers. Liam gestured to the predators around him. They taught me that strength alone is not enough. Intelligence matters. Adaptation matters. Respect matters most of all. The leader tried a different approach. We can negotiate. The council will pardon you. Full amnesty. Just let us go. I do not want their pardon. I want you to deliver a message. Liam stepped closer to the ship. Old Scar moved with him, the massive render's presence making the ship's shields flicker from proximity stress. Tell the council that Ravaka is claimed, not by force, but by right of those who understand it. Tell them this is not a death world. It is a harsh world, and harsh worlds do not tolerate the stupid or arrogant. They will come anyway. You know they will. Then they will learn what we learned. Adapt or die. Liam raised his hand, and the predators shifted, moving into positions that made the ship's weapons targeting systems flash red with too many threats to track. Roth studied Liam for a long moment. The old mercenary had seen things in his career. He knew when a fight was lost. We will deliver your message. But Carter, you realize what you were giving up? Humanity? Civilization? Everything you were. Liam looked around at Swift and her pack, at the Thornbacks that had charged in a plasma fire to break enemy lines, at Old Scar, whose bioluminescent patterns showed respect and kinship. He thought about his shelter in the trees, his place in the jungle's hierarchy, the language of lights he had learned to speak. I am not giving up humanity. I am showing what humanity can be when we stop trying to conquer everything we meet. He paused. Tell them one more thing. Tell them the Exile is dead. But something new lives here now. Something that belongs. Roth nodded slowly. What do you want us to call you? Liam thought about it. Carter was his old name, his civilized name. That person had died in the swamp 4 months ago. But he was not a predator either. He was something in between. A bridge. Tell them the jungle calls me Walker, because I walk between worlds. The mercenaries powered up the ship. The predators tensed, ready to attack if it proved a trick. But the ship simply lifted off, slowly and carefully, showing respect for territory as it climbed above the canopy and accelerated toward orbit. Swift approached Liam, her injured shoulder healing well. Her clicks formed words the translator rendered with warm colors. Pack. Home. Safe. Old Scar's patterns shifted through approving purples and blues. The render made a deep sound that vibrated in Liam's chest. Not a roar. Something gentler. Recognition between equals. The other predators dispersed, returning to their territories. The battle was won. The jungle was defended. Life would continue as it should, with respect and balance. Liam walked back toward his shelter. The twin suns were setting, painting the canopy in shades of red and gold. Somewhere in the distance, a thornback called out territorial claims. A stalker answered from the high branches. The jungle's evening song. He belonged here now, not as conqueror or victim, but as participant. The galaxy had tried to throw him away. Instead, they had given him something precious. A home where his worth was measured in choices, not credentials. Walker. He liked that name. It fit. 3 years changed everything and nothing. The jungle still hunted. Predators still fought over territory. The rain still fell like hammers, and the gravity still pressed down on everything that lived. But within the patterns, something new had grown. Walker's settlement expanded across 5 acres now. Not a human outpost, but something unique. Shelters built in the trees using techniques that combined human engineering with jungle materials. Water systems that served him and the predators equally. Meeting grounds where different species gathered without violence. The Swift's pack had grown. She led 12 raptors now, her offspring learning to use tools from hatching. They could crack shells with rocks, dig for water using sticks, even create simple traps for prey. The younger generation grew up thinking cooperation was natural. The Thornbacks had learned to use the ravines Walker showed them, leading prey into natural kill zones instead of relying only on raw strength. Their hunting efficiency improved 30%. More food meant healthier herds and fewer territorial disputes. Even the stalkers adapted. They created networks of signals using bioluminescent markers, warning each other of dangers and opportunities across miles of canopy. Information sharing between predators that had once been solitary hunters and the Renders. 4 of them now treated Walker's territory as neutral ground. Old Scar remained the eldest and wisest, but younger Renders came to learn the pattern language that let them communicate complex ideas. They gathered monthly under the massive ancient tree Walker had marked as council ground. The council itself was the strangest development. Territory disputes that once meant blood were now settled through discussion first. Predators presented their claims using the light patterns and sounds that Walker had helped codify into actual language. Fights still happened when agreement could not be reached, but they were rare now. Why waste energy fighting when talking achieved the same result? The jungle prospered under this new order. Prey populations stabilized because predators coordinated their hunting to prevent overharvesting. Warning systems meant dangerous situations like fires or floods were communicated quickly. The death rate for young predators dropped significantly because adults shared knowledge instead of each generation learning through fatal trial and error. Walker himself had changed too. The constant gravity had rebuilt his body into something harder and faster than baseline human. His reflexes matched Swift's pack. His strength let him grapple with thornbacks in territorial displays. His pattern language skills were fluent enough to hold philosophical discussions with Old Scar about the nature of intelligence and consciousness. He was not quite human anymore, but not quite predator either. Something in between, and bridge between ways of thinking. The galactic community heard stories. Roth had kept his word and spread the tale of Ravaka's defender. Some called it myth. Others called Walker insane, a human who had lost himself to isolation. But the story spread, and Ravaka was marked as forbidden territory until the colony ship arrived. Walker saw it from his elevated perch, a massive transport capable of holding thousands. Not a survey vessel, not mercenaries, actual colonists looking to settle. The ship entered orbit and began deployment of atmosphere processors. Old Scar found Walker within hours. The render's patterns blazed urgent red and yellow. Threat. Many. Sky. Walker used his scavenged equipment to hack into the colony ship's broadcast channels. He heard their plans. Ravaka had been approved for Category 2 colonization. The Death World rating was being downgraded based on new survey data showing manageable threat levels. Someone had falsified the reports. Corporate interests, probably. Ravaka's resources were too valuable to leave untouched. The colonists would land in 3 days. 50,000 humans with terraforming equipment and weapons. They planned to clear the jungle in sections, creating safe zones for settlement. What they called safe zones, Walker called genocide, that he could warn them, tell them about the jungle's intelligence. But would they listen? Humans rarely did when profit was involved. They would see only primitive animals, obstacles to remove. Walker gathered the council. All 4 renders attended, along with pack leaders from the Shrikes, dominant Thornbacks, and Stalker Nest Mothers. He used every communication method he had learned. Patterns, sounds, drawings in the dirt. The message was complex. More humans coming. Many more. With power to change the jungle itself. To burn it. Reshape it. Destroy everything. Old Scar's patterns flickered through confusion to understanding to rage. The other predators responded with fear and anger. This was beyond anything they had faced. How did you fight something that could remake the world? Walker showed them. Not fighting, talking. He would go to the humans. Speak for the jungle. Try to make them understand that Swift's clicks were sharp with concern. Donji, they kill. Remember, Walker knew the risk. But he also knew something the predators did not. Humans were capable of terrible things, yes. But they were also capable of change, of learning. Some humans, anyway, maybe enough. When the first shuttle landed, Walker was waiting in the clearing. He had cleaned himself up, dressed in clothes he made from jungle materials. Still looked wild, but recognizably human. The shuttle ramp descended. A woman emerged, flanked by security. She wore the insignia of a colonial governor. Professional, confident, and completely unprepared to see another human standing there. "Who are you?" she demanded. This planet was scanned as uninhabited by sentient species. "My name is Walker. I am the resident representative." Representative of what? Of the jungle, and the beings who live here. The governor, whose name tag read Administrator Chun, studied him with sharp eyes. "You are the Exile. Liam Carter. You were presumed dead. Carter died here. I am what grew in his place." Walker gestured to the jungle behind him. "And I am here to ask you to leave." Chun almost laughed. "Leave? We have council approval and 50,000 colonists in orbit. We're not leaving because one crazy exile asks nicely." "Then I'm also here to warn you. This jungle is intelligent. The predators communicate, cooperate, learn. They have culture and language and rules. If you try to burn it, they will fight back, and they will win. Predators do not cooperate. That is basic xenobiology. Basic xenobiology is wrong." Walker raised his hand. From the jungle, dozens of predators emerged. Shrikes, thornbacks, stalkers, all moving in perfect coordination, all stopping exactly where Walker indicated with simple gestures. Chin security raised weapons. Walker signaled and the predators stopped, holding position. "Waiting. They are following your commands," Chun said slowly. "No, they are choosing to trust me. There is a difference." Walker stepped forward. "Administrator Chun, I know how this looks. You see resources, profit, a chance to expand humanity's reach. But this is not an empty world waiting to be filled. It is a complete ecosystem with intelligence and purpose. Even if what you say is true, the Council has ruled. Colonization proceeds. Then the Council is sentencing thousands of your people to death." Walker's voice hardened. "You think your weapons and terraforming equipment make you safe. They do not. The jungle will adapt. It will learn, and it will remove the threat you represent. Are you threatening Council citizens? I am telling you what will happen. Your choice how you respond." Chin was quiet for a long moment, studying the predators arrayed behind Walker. "What do you want?" "Recognition. Declare Ravaka a protected world. Acknowledge the predators as intelligent species deserving of rights. Leave them in peace. The Council will never accept that. Death world predators with rights? The precedent alone would destroy half our colonial expansion plans. Then your expansion was built on genocide, and it is time for it to stop." Chin's expression hardened. "You have gone native. Lost perspective. These are animals, Carter. Dangerous ones. And we have legal authority to be here. Stand down or be removed." Walker shook his head sadly. He had hoped reason would work. But humans were stubborn. "I cannot stand down, and you cannot remove me. The jungle stands with me." He signaled. The predators advanced one step, then stopped, a show of force and restraint combined. Chin spoke into her communicator. "All shuttles abort landing. Return to orbit. We have a situation." "Administrator, what will you report?" Walker asked. "That Ravaka is more dangerous than assessed. That further study is needed. That human settlement is inadvisable until proper protocols are established." She met his eyes. "I'm not suicidal, Carter. You and your animals have made your point. They are not my animals. They are my neighbors, my council, my family. Then you are not human anymore." Walker smiled. "I'm more human than I ever was in your civilized galaxy. Humans adaptado. That is what we do best. I adapted to respect instead of domination, to cooperation instead of conquest, to to belonging instead of owning. The Council will not let this stand. Other ships will come. Then I will meet them too. Every time, for as long as it takes for you to understand. Walker turned to leave, then paused. Tell them the Exile became something the Predators respected. And that respect runs both ways now. Ravaka has a voice. And that voice says no. Chun watched him walk back into the jungle, Predators falling into formation around him like an honor guard. She stood in the clearing for a long time after they vanished. 3 hours later, the colony ship broke orbit and set course for Council space. The reports Administrator Chen filed were detailed and honest. She described Walker, the cooperative Predators, the obvious intelligence in their actions. She recommended Ravaka be reclassified as a Category 1 protected world with restrictions on all colonial activity. The Council debated for months. Corporate interests fought the decision. But Chen's evidence was solid, and the potential public relations disaster of colonists dying to intelligent predators was worse than lost profits. Ravaka was granted protected status. No settlement, no resource extraction, research teams only, and they had to apply through channels that Walker himself approved. The legend spread. The exile who became a king of predators. The human who spoke in lights and hunted with raptors. The man who defended a death world and won. Walker heard the stories from passing research vessels who maintained respectful distance. He found them amusing. He was not a king. Kings ruled. He simply participated. The jungle did not need a ruler. It needed someone who understood that different did not mean lesser, that Swift's great-grandchildren now used tools as naturally as claws. The Thornbacks had developed complex social structures around shared resources. The Stalkers maintained communication networks that covered half a continent. And the Renders held philosophical debates about consciousness and existence that would have impressed any university. Old Scar was ancient now, moving slower but thinking faster than ever. The elder Renders patterns had grown subtle with age, capable of expressing concepts Walker still struggled to fully understand. They sat together often, the human and the apex predator, watching the jungle thrive. Not talking, just being present. Two very different kinds of intelligence finding common ground in the simple act of respect. Walker was 40 now. He had lived longer on Ravaka than in civilized space. His hair was gray. His body bore scars from 100 challenges. But he was home. The galaxy had exiled him for speaking truth. The jungle had accepted him for learning to listen. In the end, perhaps that was humanity's real gift. Not the ability to dominate, but the ability to become part of something bigger. The predators did not just respect him. They had made him one of them. And in doing so, proved that intelligence and compassion could bridge any gap, survive any hardship, thrive in any world, even one as harsh as this.